For 301 days, the Bell family thought their slaves had been broken by some strange affliction. Then, one August morning, the cook fire was cold. The nursery was empty. The stables were swept clean, and 31 people were gone. No screaming, no broken doors, no chase in the night, just an entire plantation, answering to nobody. On the morning of August 12, 1847, Willow Bend Plantation in Dorchester County, Maryland, woke up to a silence so complete it finally meant something. For 301 days, the Bell family had lived with silence. Not ordinary quiet, not sulking, not grief, a total refusal of speech from the people they owned. At first, it seemed like one woman had lost her voice, then another, then 5 more. By winter, the whole estate had become a place where orders were answered with nods, questions with chalk, and punishment with the same unnerving stillness. The Bells called doctors, they called ministers, they held prayer circles. They searched for some sickness, some moral lesson, some explanation that would leave their own conscience intact. They never considered the truth. So when Catherine Bell stepped into the kitchen that August morning and found the stove dark, no breakfast laid out, no footsteps in the hall, she thought the cook had overslept. When she crossed the yard and found the wash line empty, the quarters swept, the barn organized, the tack room in order, she felt something worse than panic. She felt design. This was not flight in terror. Nothing had been abandoned in haste. No chair overturned, no window forced open, no horse left half-harnessed. The place looked as though the people who kept it alive had finished their work, and then quietly erased themselves from it. By the time Elias Bell reached the yard, he was staring at an estate that appeared untouched except for the one fact that mattered. Every enslaved person at Willow Bend was gone. 31 people, men, women, children. The dairy hands, the field hands, the seamstress, the cooper, the laundress, the stable boys, the nursemaid, the cook. Gone. And at the center of it all was the one person Elias Bell had trusted with his books, his daughters, his letters, and nearly every private corner of his household. Eliza Reed. The woman who had not spoken a single word in 301 days. To understand what happened at Willow Bend, you have to go back to the autumn before the disappearance. Back before the silence had a purpose anyone could see. Back when Eliza Reed still answered when spoken to. The Bells liked to think of themselves as decent owners. They did not boast about cruelty. They praised restraint. They let a few people read. They allowed hymn singing on Sundays. Catherine Bell liked to speak in town about Christian stewardship, about duty, about the humane management of dependents. Elias preferred practical language, order, stability, good treatment, mutual loyalty. Many people who benefited from slavery, they mistook a softer tone for innocence. Willow Bend itself ran on that illusion. The front rooms glowed with polished walnut and imported china. The yard behind the house ran on bent backs, raw hands, sleepless mothers, and the constant knowledge that every child, every marriage, every body there could be converted into money if the numbers demanded it. Eliza Reed knew this better than anyone. She was 39 in 1846, dark-skinned, sharp-eyed, educated in fragments by an earlier household, and so capable that the Bells had built half their comfort around her competence. She copied correspondence, balanced household ledgers, ordered fabric and lamp oil, kept the girls on their lessons, managed schedules, prepared guest rooms. She was the sort of enslaved woman white families described as indispensable, as if the compliment disguised the theft. In October 1846, Eliza was sorting invoices in Elias Bell's office when he received a visitor from Baltimore, a broker who spoke in the dry, clean language men use when discussing ruin. Bell's shipping investment had collapsed. A packet venture on the Chesapeake had swallowed cash, then gone under. Creditors were tightening. Land would not sell quickly enough. Grain would not cover the gap. There was, the broker said, only one liquid asset left that could move fast. 12 people. Not 12 units, not 12 entries in a book. 12 human beings, chosen for age, strength, skill, and resale value. Eliza heard all of it. And what changed her was not shock, it was recognition. This was the moment when the Bell family's gentleness revealed its price tag. Every kindness had always rested on the same floorboards as the auction block. It only looked different while no one needed cash. That evening, Eliza did not warn the others in whispers. She did not plead. She did not rage. She did something much colder. The next morning, when Catherine Bell asked for the week's correspondence, Eliza handed her a note. My voice is gone. The doctor came. He found no wound, no swelling, no fever. Her throat looked fine. Her hearing was clear. Her writing steady. He diagnosed a nervous condition. Catherine was relieved. Elias was irritated. But illness could be managed. Illness invited patience. Defiance did not. So Eliza kept writing, kept working, kept nodding at the right moments, kept the household running so smoothly that her muteness began to look less like resistance and more like a strange inconvenience. Then, after dark, she carried a slate to the quarters and wrote the truth. 12 people would be sold by late summer. If they stayed and waited, families would be cut apart, one transaction at a time. If they ran too soon, they would be hunted as scattered fugitives. If they ran together, loudly, in panic, they would fail. But if silence spread slowly, like something the Bells could pity and study instead of punish, the estate might spend months looking at the wrong danger. That was the plan. Not protest. Preparation. The first week, only 4 others stopped speaking. A week later, there were 9. By December, nearly half the quarters had gone wordless. By January, speech at Willow Bend had become so rare that even the Bell children lowered their voices, as if noise itself had become improper on the property. It unnerved everyone. A local physician called it imitative muteness. A visiting minister blamed hidden sin. One woman from town claimed the silence had entered through grief, another through witchcraft, another through too much education among enslaved people. Each theory helped, because each theory kept attention fixed on the symptom. Meanwhile, the actual machinery of escape started turning, but not without pressure. Elias Bell was not blind. He began questioning people one by one. He tried surprise, threats, bargains, fatherly tones, direct accusations. Nothing worked. The field hands stared back. The house servants wrote only what was necessary. The children copied the adults. Even fear had nowhere to go, because fear too had agreed to keep its mouth shut. Then spring brought the worst moment of all. A specialist from Annapolis visited the estate and concluded that the silence was sustained by group attachment. If Bell wished to cure it, he said, he should separate the most influential adults from the young. Remove children from their mothers for a time. Break the pattern. Restore ordinary habits by force. That suggestion hit the quarters like a blade. For the first time since the plan began, people wanted to abandon it. Not because they doubted Eliza, because they suddenly understood the cost of waiting even 1 week too long. A father wrote that they should run immediately. A mother wrote that they would lose the little ones on the road. One of the boys, barely 14, broke down in tears and slapped his own throat in frustration, because terror needed sound, and he had promised not to give it any. That was the darkest point. Not the danger from Bell, the danger from within. The moment when 31 people had to decide whether discipline was still stronger than dread. Eliza answered with 3 lines on a slate. If we scatter now, they catch us in pieces. If we speak now, they divide us before we move. If we hold a little longer, we leave as one body. No poetry, no speeches, just arithmetic. It held. Partly because everyone at Willow Bend understood the alternative. Bell had not canceled the sale. He had only delayed choosing which 12 bodies would pay his debts. The silence had bought time, not mercy. And then chance favored them in a cruel way. Bell considered selling a few people early, but traders warned that mute enslaved workers would raise questions and lower prices. If this was a passing condition, Bell was told, he should wait. Restore their voices first, then sell cleanly. So the market itself protected the conspiracy. The people Bell meant to turn into cash became temporarily too inconvenient to liquidate. And that gave Eliza the final months she needed. She started with paper, because paper moved farther than courage could. Bell kept signed travel blanks in a locked drawer, along with wax, seals, and old copies of previous passes. Eliza had spent years filing them. She knew the weight of the paper, the slant of his hand, the pressure he used at the end of his name. She took one blank at a time, then another, never enough to announce itself. Practiced his signature until imitation became muscle memory. Built passes for errands that sounded ordinary. Grain delivery, family visits, purchased supplies, hired transport. Then came money. A few cents padded into flour accounts, a missing dollar from lamp oil, small adjustments to freight charges. Nothing dramatic, nothing greedy. Just the kind of drift a man like Elias Bell would blame on merchants before he blamed his own house steward. By midsummer, Eliza had hidden enough for food, ferries, wagons, and the sort of silence that occasionally had to be purchased in coin. Contact North came through church letters. Catherine Bell loved charitable correspondence. Eliza drafted much of it. Under polite language about donations and prayer, she began slipping patterns into the phrasing. Numbers where names should be. Biblical references that pointed to dates. A request for guidance for 31 travelers delayed by illness. A thank you note that contained, in the margin and nearly invisible, the reply she had been waiting for. A meeting place near Easton. A waterman on the river. Move in groups. Do not all take the same road. By July, the plan had shape. They would not flee as one crowd. That was too easy to spot. They would leave Willow Bend in stages over one night, moving first through the marsh edge where patrol horses slowed in mud. From there, they would reach a timber landing before dawn. A free black waterman would take part of them across a narrow stretch by boat. Others would move by wagon under forged passes. They would regroup near Easton, then split again. Delaware, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Beyond that, wherever freedom could hold. There was one more danger. In early August, patrols tightened after an unrelated escape farther south. Roads were watched. Papers checked more carefully. Any error in timing would be fatal. Any child crying at the wrong crossing. Any lantern seen in the wrong field. Any single act of panic. The whole design had narrowed to one date, August 11th. The night before Bell intended to finalize the names of the 12 who would be sold. That evening, the household functioned exactly as usual. Dinner served, lamps trimmed, children put to bed, stable checked, yard swept. Bell slept, believing the problem on his plantation was still silence. He never understood that silence had already finished its work. They began moving after midnight. No shouted orders, no frantic running. Only signal, motion, sequence. A tap on a wall, a hand at a door, a bundle lifted, a child carried sleeping. A final look at a room that had never belonged to them. Eliza left last from the big house. She paused in Bell's office long enough to return the key to its hook and place 2 ledgers exactly where he expected them to be. Then she stepped into the yard and closed the door without a sound. By dawn, Willow Bend had been emptied with the precision of a military withdrawal. The cook fire was dead, the wash kettles clean, the quarters swept, the stable organized, tools put back, bedding folded. Most heavy belongings left behind because speed mattered more than possession. The whole plantation looked less like the site of an escape than the shell of a life that had quietly withdrawn from it. Bell's first instinct was abduction. His second was conspiracy. His third, finally, was Eliza. He went to his office and saw what should have been obvious months earlier. Missing blanks, wax residue, a seal recently used. He had spent almost a year trying to force voices out of people who had been using his own paperwork against him. By the time riders were sent out, the first groups were already beyond the roads Bell controlled. One wagon passed inspection under his forged signature. Another group crossed by skiff before full light. 2 mothers with children hid half a day in reed beds while patrols moved past. 4 people were nearly caught near the state line and turned back, then redirected and sent north a different way days later. Not every mile was clean. Not every crossing was safe. Freedom almost never arrives without losses, delays, and the possibility of being dragged backward. But Bell's world had already broken, because even where capture remained possible, ownership did not. Most of the 31 made it beyond Maryland within weeks. Some disappeared into black communities in Philadelphia. Some went farther. A few kept moving until the border itself changed what the law could call them. As for Eliza Reed, the woman the Bells had trusted to hold together their house, she was later remembered by the people who escaped with her for one decision above all others. Not the forged passes, not the letters, not even the route. The silence. Because that was the stroke nobody around them knew how to read. The Bells heard quiet and mistook it for weakness. Doctors heard muteness and mistook it for illness. Ministers heard nothing and mistook it for obedience. But the people at Willow Bend had discovered the one thing slavery could not fully seize unless it was freely given: their answer. And for 301 days, they withheld it, until the only reply left was an empty plantation at sunrise.